Good morning, friends, and thank you for joining this, our conversation about planned giving and legacy giving. This is such an important topic, and I want to make sure that everyone here has the information they need to be able to do this work in their congregation. If it's stalled in your congregation, we're going to give you some impetus to get it going again. If you just want to learn about it for the first time, we're here to help you with that too. And so I'm hoping that by the end of today, your curiosity will be piqued and you'll want to know yet more about creating or reinvigorating your legacy society. My name is Davey Gerhard, and I'm the Executive Director of TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. This is a part of our ongoing series of webinars this year, and we're glad you can join us. Today, what we're going to talk about is, unsurprisingly, how to create and grow a legacy society. So, how to get one off the ground, how to add people to it. That's both the people who are making gifts and also the people who are running that ministry in your congregation. We're going to be talking about both of those things today. And then we're going to go over some specifics on the different kind of planned giving vehicles that are out there. I'm not an expert. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not a lawyer. But I do know something about the kinds of common planned gifts that people use in churches to make their legacy gifts. And so we're going to talk about that, not so that you um, will become your own experts, but so that you have some fluency, familiarity with the different kinds of gifts that are out there, so that when you are trying to talk with people in your congregation about their legacy, about their generosity, you can have some answers to them and some familiarity with what they might be talking about. And then, as I said, your questions are the most important thing we'll be covering. Well, let's tuck into it. And I want to just remind you with this disclaimer that this is providing an overview. It's not legal, tax, investment, or other professional advice. I am not qualified to do any of that, but what I am is a church fundraiser, and I work with people all the time on making their planned gifts, on understanding this responsibility in our congregations and this joy of this ministry. And so I want to pass that along to you. You're going to need to see professionals when you want to accomplish some of these things. And I'm going to be clear with you as we go through this, which things you can do on your own, which things you might want to seek professional advice about, and which things you absolutely have to have professional advice about, just so that we're all clear. All right, so we're going to talk now about the Legacy Society in your congregation. So this is the ministry that contains or represents legacy giving in your church. The folks who join your legacy society or rector circle or your foundation circle, people call it all kinds of things, and I've heard lots of different names. Whatever name you pick in your congregation will help people understand just what the ministry is. And your goal as participants in this ministry and leaders of this ministry is to form that cornerstone of planned giving. People that have enough information or have some enthusiasm for planned giving, the point people in your church that people can talk to. It also strengthens the bond between donors and their church, right? So often we make our annual gift, and sometimes we rise to the occasion of making a capital gift when that's required of us for reasons. But legacy giving is something very special. Not everybody does make a legacy gift, but everybody can. There's no gift that's too large or too small to fit into a legacy giving society or a planned gift. And so this is really a good way to talk about that lifetime of generosity. Also, your role is to be the ambassador, the cheerleader, the advocate for planned giving. often it gets moved to the back burner in our congregations because we're very focused on annual funding or perhaps a special kind of campaign that we might be running. And we forget that our churches are built on planned gifts, that our endowments are sustained by planned gifts, and that the work of the church relies on planned giving. So if you're finding yourself, you're looking around your church and you're saying, we're not really doing this ministry, or we could be doing it better, or there used to be somebody involved with it, but now I don't know who that person is. Maybe it will be you. Maybe you can get from this conversation today some of the enthusiasm and inspiration to be able to lead this ministry in your congregation. After all, it is our responsibility to do this work. And our Book of Common Prayer reminds us of this. This is in the section of the prayer book where we're talking about the thanksgiving of a child. And so it's a little exhortation that the minister might read or be aware of, that it is, in fact, our duty as Christian parents to provide and to be responsible about providing for the next generation. And if we can kick a gift into the church or other charitable giving, we're asked to think about that too. This reminder doesn't come up very often, and I bet your prayer book doesn't automatically open to it, but it's in there and it reminds us, it's in there for a reason. It reminds us that this work isn't separate from our theology. It's not separate from our ministry. It is, in fact, incorporated into who we are and how we are as Christians and as a body that worships and lives together in community. All right, so let's say you're starting from scratch, or you have a ministry that somebody used to run it, but it's not been happening for a while, so maybe it's time to reinvigorate it. There's some really easy things you can do right up front to get this ministry started in your congregation. The first is to start talking about it. If you haven't heard anyone say Legacy Society or planned gifts or how we grow our endowment, then it's time to probably begin introducing that conversation to to your church and to our members. So one simple way to do that is to add some language to the pledge card that you put out every whenever you do your fundraising campaign. And you can ask in that, I've remembered, make a little tick if you've remembered your church in your will or estate. Or if you're interested in learning more about it, that's another little checkbox. I'd like to do this, but haven't yet. This isn't a hard ask, right? People may not decide at this moment that they want to do this or make this gift or participate in this. What this is a little seed that gets planted. Generally, we think, we say that a person needs to be asked 7 times before they're ready to say yes to a planned gift. It's because it's a serious undertaking. It's real discernment. It's about assets and the distribution of our assets. And so it's not to be taken lightly. Therefore, we need to keep planting the seed. If we're not talking about it ever, then that seed never gets planted. If we talk about it once and then we forget about it for a while, well, that seed just sits there and it doesn't get the nutrition it needs. It doesn't get the sunlight it needs to be able to do its thing. So please plant some seeds, start the conversations. Start creating your list. These are people who have remembered the church in their will. Maybe it's a list that you publish because people are okay with that. Maybe it's just a list in the office that the rector has or the treasurer knows about so that you can be looking for these gifts. As someone who has worked in diocesan ministry and in parish ministry, one of the weirdest things is to get a gift and not know anything about where it's come from. Who who was this person? Why are they leaving? This is a beautiful planned gift. What a great bequest. But we have no information. Maybe we didn't know that person. Maybe they came generations ago, or maybe it's in memory of a parent or something. We had no idea because nobody tracked it, nobody was thinking about it, or perhaps because they'd never been asked on a pledge card, hey, have you done this? Notice that question doesn't say, and how much is it for, and what are the particulars of it? Just let us know. If you've done this, we want to know about it. We'll be looking for it. Um, Another piece that you can do is begin marketing this, begin promoting it. Have a little pamphlet, some information at the back of the church, in your rack, so that people can start seeing it. You don't have to create these from scratch. In fact, the Episcopal Church Foundation, or Forward Movement, they have some ready to go things, or perhaps where you have some template language and all you have to do is maybe insert some pictures of you and your church, and you'll have a brochure kind of ready to go with very general information. You can start there and then you can work more specifically as you get more into this ministry. Absolutely make sure that you have a little note on your website, wherever your giving page is, that your church also accepts planned gifts, that you know what to do about it. This is again one of those little seeds that we plant, a little reminder, that there are ways, to make your gift, to pay attention to this, and that people can do this ministry. So please don't let that lie fallow. As you move forward, kind of the next step in reinvigorating or beginning your planned giving work is to have a committee. I know it's the Episcopal Church. We love a committee on something. But what these folks do, is that they set the work of promoting and creating the space for planned giving ministry in your congregation. Maybe they hold an annual event where they give information about planned giving. Maybe they go up to people at coffee hour and are there as a resource. These folks can steward that ministry and lead that ministry in a really beautiful way. So set these people apart, even commission them. Let people know these are the folks in your congregation who are really engaged in this ministry and who might be great resources to talk to. We have lots of information, and there are lots of places for you to get information. As I mentioned, the Episcopal Church Foundation, ECS.org, ECF.org, has great information. Some of it you pay for, some of it is free. What you pay for is very reasonably priced because they really want this information to get out into congregations. Your diocese may have information on its website or from its CFO, or whatever. They might be able to help you get more information on how to do this. And I know that we have Charles Clowen, he's right here on the screen with us, who's written the book on planned giving and does this ministry beautifully in the Diocese of Maryland. Charles, I wonder if you have a couple of words to say to us about materials and anything else you want to say to us about Legacy Society. Welcome, by the way, welcome.
Well, I have a few comments. Most of my wait till later. But the thing is, for me, you begin this and you put a brochure together. Now, for us at our cathedral, we have 37 public members of our Legacy Society and 7 anonymous members. And what we do the Sunday after All Saints, they allow me to speak for 4 minutes, inviting people to join the Legacy Society. On the fourth Sunday of Lent, which is Refreshment Sunday, I buy a cake. And we have a wonderful sheet cake from the best bakery in town. And we all share in that. And all the names are published that Sunday in our bulletin. And again, the key thing is make sure you have permission to publish the names. That way, people look at it and list, say, what? Joe's like me, I could do that. So it's a way of constantly, every year we do the same thing. Sunday after All Saints and the fourth Sunday of Lent. And to invite people to do it, to make a gift. And then I also meet with people personally, one-on-one, to talk to them about planned giving. But it's an invitation. It's a wonderful thing to do. The Episcopal Church Foundation is great. And it's a matter of, I say, if your church can afford a cake, you can afford to have a Legacy Society. Okay. But make sure it's a good cake. Thank you.
Has to be a good cake. Charles, thank you. And we look forward to your comments throughout. You are such a resource, not only for your diocese and for TENS, but I know you help many organizations and the Episcopal Church as a whole in this ministry. So thank you for your many decades of service to this ministry.
Well, thank you for your great work, David, and for this wonderful webinar.
Here we are together. All right, so let's start talking about what gift planning can do for your congregation. We've talked now at first about how to get this started, and why who and how. Now let's talk about the why, like why this really matters for your congregation and what it can do for you. We want to know, how does gift planning fit into your revenue streams? When you do that pie chart for your annual budget or your annual meeting, and you take a look at where your money comes from, and there's that big section that's for pledges, and maybe you have plate, and maybe you have special gifts or bequests or whatever. And maybe there's something about your endowment in there. You're getting some money from you're making a draw on your endowment. Well, it's really important for us to say we get money from planned gifts every year, whatever that is. If it's large or small, I bet your church at some point has received income and is still receiving income from some kind of a planned gift. And we should let people know that. Again, it's a seed that we plant. Oh, where's this endowment come from? Oh, why did we get a bequest for $200,000 this year? Who made that? How did it come to be? When we start seeing that reflected in our annual budget, we start to understand, oh, people are doing this. I could do this. What is a gift that's planned? Well, I hope every gift is planned, right? I hope that every gift that you put into the plate or right to the church or put into your legacy is a gift that's discerned, that's prayerful, that is um, something that you have thought about, that you take seriously. And when we call something a planned gift, what we mean by that is something that you put into your estate plan, a gift that comes after you've died. It could be life insurance, it could be retirement assets, it could be other assets that you have. There are so many ways that people make gifts that are planned. But when we call something a planned gift, we usually mean that it's post life. In your next life, this gift comes back to the church and continues in perpetuity. We're going to talk in a little bit about the most common types of planned gifts. Again, as I said, to give you some fluency and familiarity with them. We're going to talk about later how we make certain that our donors' wishes are honored in planned gifts, and what kinds of there are opportunities and there are some pitfalls in planned gifts. And we want to make sure that we help people make the best gift for the church that also represents what they want to do, right? The more restricted a gift is, the more difficult it is to use for a church. And so we want people to make open gifts or unrestricted gifts when possible, or gifts for things that we know are going to be there in the future. I'll have some examples later of gifts that have gone wrong for congregations, because that's a thing that happens too. Uh, some of there are kinds of gifts that people can make that produce an income stream back to the giver, that provide a lifetime giving stream. And we're going to talk about those too. This could be really important for someone who has an asset that they're not quite done with. They're ready to set it aside for the church, but they'd really like some income from it while they're still alive. And there are ways that we can do that. Thankfully, there are tax codes and things that we can use, and some gifts. We're going to talk about that too. The other advantage of making a gift, a planned gift, is that you might get some relief in your current tax year or in your near future tax year. This could be really helpful for folks who, especially when they're looking at appreciated assets and things like that. How do we get some relief from these taxes that we're looking at? Stewardship is all that we have. I spoke recently at the Diocese of Southern Virginia's convention, and we talked about giving And we talked about resources. What is a resource? What can you give? What does God ask of you? And somebody said, anything that is a noun. Everything that is a noun has been created and given to you by God to steward and nurture and cultivate and improve and give back to the world in some way or another. Everything, your intellect, your money, your assets, your the way you raise children in your family, your career skills, everything that is a noun is a gift from God and can be turned into ministry for God's people. When we talk about our giving, we often think about it in terms of money. That's our finite humanity coming through. And then we need to remember that these are God's assets. Yes, you've worked hard for them. Yes, you've stewarded them well, but it all comes from God and it all goes back to God. And so, how we think about that relationship is really important to us. So, we give for today. That's our stewardship, our annual gift, our capital needs, and then we give for the future, a planned gift to provide for the needs of the generation yet to come, for people who who we don't know yet. I love to ask people when talking about planned giving to walk around their church and look at the names on stained glass windows or to open up the hymnal and see a little page in the front leaf that maybe that hymnal is dedicated to someone or purchased in memory of someone. If after communion, you flip over the bottom of the paten, I bet it has somebody's name on it, somebody who gave that or was given in memory of them. The things in our church have been given as gifts, including the very stones and the very foundation of our churches often have been made by planned gifts or gifts in memory of people. And so we want to remember that gifts of all kinds go into making planned gifts, and this is really important to us. To put a graphic around that, what are the kinds of gifts that we make in church? Those bottom three rungs of the pyramid, that's our annual giving. That's our stewardship campaign. That's your pledge drive. That's what people put in the plate. And that comes from visitors, that comes from people who are brand new to your church, that comes from people who are making their annual gift because they are moved by your ministry and they're deeply a part of your congregation. And that's the bulk of what a lot of our churches use for their annual operating income. And in fact, if we're living in harmony, living within our means, our pledge and plate should be able to provide most of our annual or all of our annual income if we are so blessed and fortunate to be able to do that. Um, but we also raise gifts, those next two sections of the pyramid, for special reasons or for capital campaigns or for big work that needs to be done either in ministry or in the church. And for that, we usually run a campaign of major gifts, or maybe you've heard of capital campaigns or been through them before. They're very time limited, specific gifts, and people like a planned gift, often make them from assets rather than from income. We make those first three gifts on our pyramid from our front pocket, from the money that we earn, either through our retirement assets or our paycheck or other means. And then we make the other gifts that we make often from our assets. Perhaps we have some appreciated stock, and avoiding the capital gains by giving it to the capital campaign is a good way to make that gift to the church. And we can do that. We can use assets or we can use our income. Some people do that too. But those next two, that capital and special giving, those are really important gifts for very specific reasons. Then the top of the pyramid is a gift that everyone can make in one way or another. What is your wish for your future assets, for the assets that you have? How might you share some of them or all of them or any portion therein with the church? And this goes into our endowment. This goes into our funds functioning as endowments that vestries might designate as a reserve or a special reserve. Maybe it's a music reserve or a maintenance reserve or scholarship reserve, something like that, or your endowment, which then feeds back down into your annual giving or your annual support through that draw. These come from bequests, from annuities, from other planned gifts that people make, and they're really important. The beautiful thing about giving is that everyone can do something. Not everybody has to give the kind of gift where they name a new wing after them. A planned gift can be of any size. It can be for any purpose, just as your stewardship pledge can be of any size, and it will be greatly appreciated and added in love with all of the other gifts that come into the church. So I find this pyramid helpful to remember that we're giving all the time. And there are lots of ways, but there are different ways that the churches use different kinds of gifts. So let's keep that in mind. The very most and perhaps the beginning of remembering and talking about planned giving is that we have to ask for them. I know it's hard, and actually it's not hard, but we think it's hard. We think talking about money is difficult, and then we're talking about it in church, which is one of those things society tells us we're not supposed to talk about. And then we're talking about death. So, wow, money, death, and church all in one conversation. And we have been taught that's a really dangerous conversation. Those are scary conversations, but they're not. When you're with people of faith, you're talking from a place of faith, and you're talking from a place of desire and dream, then you are talking about what people want to fulfill, what their legacy is. I never walk up to somebody and say, how much do you want to leave the church when you die? I mean, that's not a conversation starter, right? But what would you like your legacy to be? What matters to you? What would you like to see for the church in the future? What's your vision for the future? These are places to start those conversations, and we have to start them. I've worked with priests who are incredibly faithful and see themselves as very earnest stewards of God's gifts, who absolutely won't talk about planned giving with their parish because it's just a bridge too far for them. It feels like it's crossing pastoral and financial boundaries and all kinds of things. And I try to work with those folks and say, no, actually, this is a gift. You're giving a gift to the people in your congregation who need to hear this. And there's never been a conversation I've had with someone in planned giving where they didn't say at the end, thank you. I feel better knowing what's going to happen with my assets, knowing that my church is going to be taken care of. We're not here to wring people out of their wealth. What we're here to do is support them on their journey and help them fulfill their legacy and what they want out of their gift and what they want for their community. The number one reason people don't make a planned gift is because no one asked. The saddest conversations I have with clergy are when somebody says, somebody recently died in my parish, and I just never got around to asking them for their planned gift. We had all the conversation about planning their liturgy or what was going to happen, but we just didn't have that final conversation about planning a gift. What can I do? Like, there's very little you can do now, especially if their children aren't members or don't want to talk to you about money, which is often the case. If that hasn't been set up before people die, the heirs are often unwilling to unlock that generosity and make a gift. Some are, but some are not. So it's really important that we have these conversations when people are in the capacity to make an honest, discerned, prayerful decision about their legacy. Give people the opportunity to say yes by starting the conversation, which starts, as we said before, with planting those seeds. Why is this important? Well, planned gifts make an incredible contribution to your church. We looked at that pyramid and it looks like the planned giving is the smallest part, but often endowments are huge. I was working with a congregation just this week where only 35% of their annual income comes from pledge and plate. The rest of it comes from super generous donors who lived generations ago and left incredible endowment to this church, right? That's beautiful. And wow, what a legacy to live into. And so when we look at how generous people have been and can be, and see what kind of impact that has on our congregations, it's really a beautiful understanding of legacy. But there's some practical things too. We're practical people, and planned gifts also can perhaps lower your taxes or lower the burden of taxes on your heirs. And you can get some tax saving during your life. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And it's a way to pass along your values. A few years ago, I went to a funeral in the Moravian church tradition. The Moravian church is a Reformation church out of Europe, and they're in full communion with the Episcopal Church, like the Lutherans are, for example. And so the Moravian church, I went to a funeral, and they have a theology at their funeral that not only do they give a eulogy and they sing and do all the things that we do, but somebody stands up and reads the spiritual will and testament of the person who's died. And they've written something down or they've passed along their thoughts. And it's gifts that they want to give of wisdom or lessons or encouraging words or things that they've learned over time. They're these beautiful, beautiful statements of a person's life that get passed down as proverbs or as instruction or as that little thing you might remember from your grandfather when you really need a lift, right? There's a beautiful tradition. When we make a planned gift, we are talking about our values. We're talking about what we want the next generation, what we want our family to remember us for, what we saw as important in our life. When we start, bequests are the very easiest kind of gift to give. And it usually just takes a little note in your will, and you leave something to the church. This is really easy to do. If you have a will, you just need to add some language to it to make it happen. And you don't have to give everything, right? You don't have to give 100% of your assets. You don't have to give your whole house. You can give a percentage of your house. You can give a percentage of your retirement assets. You can make the gift in whatever way and whatever amount you want to, either as a percentage, which is most helpful because money changes over time, or as a fixed dollar amount. I see lots of gifts like this come in, and a couple of things to note that are really important. If you leave a fixed dollar amount and you maybe put that in your will in the 80s when you were creating your will, or in the 90s when you were creating your will, and now it's the 2020s or 30s or 40s when you finally pass on. What was a large amount of money in the 90s might not be a significant amount. And maybe it's not even a significant amount of your assets any longer. So think about leaving percentages rather than direct dollar amounts, but it's your will, it's your way, and however you want to leave that money is helpful. This is coming also some advice from a person who worked on diocesan staff for many times. Would get a letter in the mail from a lawyer who said so and so just died and is leaving a gift to Trinity Church. Which one? Please tell me which Trinity Church in our diocese is the recipient of this, because this person died and maybe they hadn't been going to church in a while. Maybe they moved away. Maybe they had been living in a retirement home and not participating in a church. And even the rectors of all the Trinity churches don't know who this person is. How am I supposed to do this gift? Where is this supposed to go? And sometimes we find that information out, and sometimes it just lingers in a bank account until hopefully somebody says, hey, that money's supposed to be here or there. So be very specific. I'm leaving it to Trinity Church on this street in this city. That would be really great, because otherwise, your diocese or whoever is looking at your will might not know what to do with it when it comes. That's such a true story. St. Paul's, St. Mark's, we got a lot of those in the church. Please be specific. So that was an easy gift. Almost as easy as that is making a gift of your retirement assets. You can make the church a beneficiary or a partial beneficiary, contingent beneficiary. And all you have to do is call them up or sometimes just fill out a form. It's very easy to leave a portion of your retirement assets to the church and make that change. People also use their required minimum distribution to make their annual gift or perhaps make a capital gift. All of these things have tax advantages to them. And so knowing, maybe talking to your financial planner or talking to the CFO of the diocese and saying which of these options is best for me and my heirs is a direction you want to go. But these are very easy gifts to make. And most of us will have something left of our retirement assets when we no longer need them. Those get passed on to our heirs, but they can also be passed on to churches or other charities that have been meaningful to us. Some people do their giving through donor advised funds, and these are great ways to make a gift to your church. And they allow you to get a tax advantage in the now by putting that money aside and giving it to usually a community foundation or a large investment bank will have this donor advised fund option. You get to make, while you're living, choices about where you want that money to go every year, and you can add to that donor advised fund all the time and continue getting tax advantages for that. And then make grants, perhaps to your church, perhaps to other charities. And then when you die, those assets are also then distributed according to your wishes. This is a great way if you have, and you don't have to be like a bazillionaire to have a donor advised fund. This works like a family foundation for people who don't have family foundation money. And so it's a great way to set aside some giving for now and gifts that will mature later for the church or your other charitable intents. There are some gifts that you can make that cost you absolutely nothing during your lifetime and are easy to do. The bequest, a specific amount or a percentage, just put the church name in it. This is the most common way that we can make a gift. It costs you something to make your will the first time, but adding language to it is usually free or very low cost, and it's done. This has cost you literally nothing, and it's meant everything to your community that comes after you. Also making, changing the beneficiary on a retirement account, a life insurance policy. My grandfather, for example, had a life insurance policy that, his kids were all grown. They had their own life insurance policies for their kids. And so he was like, paid on this thing. I can give it away now. And he left it to his college for a scholarship. Didn't leave it to his church, left it to his college. But we can do that. We can take an insurance policy that we no longer need, that we've been paying on, and say, I'm ready to let this go and put it to good use elsewhere. And we can change the beneficiary on our life insurance policies too. So that's an easy way to do this. And other money market or brokerage accounts, you can change the beneficiary. There are some gifts that you can give that are actually even more beneficial for than giving cash because they give you a tax advantage in the now. And this is really important for us to remember, especially when talking about appreciated stock. We just saw the stock market hit yet again historic highs. And so if you are sitting on appreciated stock now, you can use that, or especially looking at your portfolio, what's left when you no longer need it. Those are gifts that can be used as planned gifts and make great gifts for your church. So imagine making a gift of stock or leaving a portfolio to a church and what that could do. There are also ways that you can get an income stream, and we're going to talk about those now. Some gifts that are irrevocable, that means you can't change your mind on them, that money gets set aside or that asset gets set aside. You get a charitable deduction in the now, and you get income from life, and then your designated charity or church gets that money when you pass. Um, we look at lots of different ways to do this. Annuities, trusts, these are some of the languages that we use to do this. Um, the older you are when you make that gift, the better the return for you. This is thanks to our insurance actuaries who look at our lifespan and our possibility and calculate what that gift could be worth. You can look at Episcopal Church Foundation, which serves all the Episcopal Church. Your own bank might have an option for some income gifts and some ways that you can make these gifts very easily. Here's the way a charitable gift annuity works, and if you've never explored this before, where you take that initial asset, that property or that cash or whatever, and in this case, it's a 75-year-old person who's putting aside $50,000. That person will get 5.8% on it. That's what it's determined for this year. It changes annually. And so you see, they get an income tax deduction right away for designating that piece of property or that cash as a charitable gift. They get a deduction of 20,000 bucks. That's nice. And that could really save them on their income taxes come the end of the year. Then they get an annuity for life. You can never outlive this. This keeps coming. This is generated. So in this gift, in this example, you'll get an income stream. This person will get an income stream of $2,900 a year. Most of that is tax free. And so they get this really good payout rate for leaving that gift. And then at the end, whatever's left goes to the church and or whatever asset that they have or whatever charitable designation they've made. This is a way to leave a gift, receive the income, and then that amount goes to your church. This is for one person. You can do this for two people too. So say you have, this is a contingency, um, who, you don't know which of you in your marriage might go first. And so there's a way to do that. And it's a different calculation, especially if they are different aged people. But in this case, you can see they get a little lower tax deduction because it's a longer lifespan, two lives instead of one. They still get an annuity, most of which is tax-free, and then the church gets what's left at the end. So when people are looking at structuring gifts, and if someone comes up to you and says, I have a cottage and I'd like to sell it and I'd like to give that money to the church, what's the best way to do it? I still need some money from that. I'd like to receive some money from that. There are ways that you can help them. You don't have to do this paperwork, right? They're going to go to somebody who knows how to do the paperwork to do it, but you can suggest it. There's a way for you to have an income stream and to make a gift to the church and to receive a tax deduction. That might be all you need to say, and then that gets the wheel started with their financial planner or their bank where they can finalize that deal and then let you know how it works. You're not expected in this case to sign off on anything or do the paperwork. You're not the expert in the room. They'll go to someone who is. But you are the ambassador. You're the one saying, hey, this is possible because you're a member of your church's legacy society and you know they can do this. Trusts, charitable remainder trusts are another way that you can receive an income and your church will get a lovely gift. They're usually large gifts at first. So they usually have a threshold of 100,000 or more. A trust is a legal entity. It gets set up as such, and it's then something that you need to fulfill and have a legal obligation to. If you don't have 100 grand lying around and you want to pool it up with four families who might put into this, you can do a pooled income fund. Episcopal Church Foundation or Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard, whoever you use, knows what to do with that. This is a way. I've worked with a group of families and a congregation here in the Diocese of California for many years. Four families that pooled their income together 30 years ago. And every year when they call up to say, what are we worth now? How is it? Their church, when this gift finally matures, their church is going to get over $2 million. And they made this very modest gift at the beginning, and they've added to it over the years. But this gift is worth an enormous amount of money, compound interest, and everything else that's come to pass in our economy is going to make this a life-changing gift for this congregation. What a gift! They didn't have $100,000 when they set out to do this, but between four of them, they could, and they did it. Look at that. So there are these beautiful stories of how creative we can be, and how when we channel our giving toward our legacy and for our church and mission, we can think beautifully about them. We talked about life insurance. You can donate the policy. You can make the church a beneficiary. These are almost as easy. Okay, let's review, and then we're going to take your questions. You don't need any help from a lawyer or anyone else if you want to add language to your will, creating a bequest. That's easy to do. You don't need any help to change your retirement account beneficiary. That's a phone call or an online form or a letter. And the same is true for a life insurance policy. You could always consult a financial planner. You might want to, but you don't have to have legal intervention to make those kinds of gifts. You should probably have some help to set up your gift annuity or contribute to a pooled income fund. It'd be nice to have somebody looking over that and helping you make sure that paperwork is to your advantage. You should take a look if you're making a gift of a universal or whole life insurance policy, or making a gift of real estate or other tangible property. Named art, a boat, things like that that you might want to leave. These are things you should talk with a professional about and make sure they're properly evaluated and designated to the church. You absolutely need a lawyer to begin your last will and testament, and to do that work for the first time. You need a lawyer to set up a trust because it is its own legal entity. And these aren't hefty lawyer bills, but they are things that you would want to make sure that you sat in front of a lawyer and got some professional advice, and there's some paperwork. And if you have real complex gifts, which are beautiful to create and think of, you definitely need a lawyer who is familiar with tax law and inheritance law and can put all that together for you and make sense of it if you are leaving your primary residence or an income producing farm or something like that. We have all kinds of things. Again, as I said, if it's a noun, it's been given to you, you've stewarded it, and it can be given to the church. So think about all those nouns in your life and how your heirs and how your church might deal with them and benefit from them. Here's the truth. If you don't have a will, the state has a will for you, and it is likely not your ideal dream of where you would want your assets or your values to go. So make certain you have a say in this and make certain that as you are leading this ministry in your congregation, you are giving faithful members the opportunity to provide for the church and do this ministry and engage with it. They will be grateful for it. I see a question from Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth. Um, we have a legacy society of about 25 people. We have some sort of appreciation event every year, but should we aim to engage these donors in a more active way? I bet our friend Charles here has some great wisdom on what to do with your. I love that you have such a robust legacy society, by the way. That's great. Charles, what kind of appreciation should they do and how should they engage these donors throughout the year?
I think for appreciation, as we do at the cathedral, twice a year we show our appreciation. We publish their names, we thank them, we thank them, we thank them, and make ourselves available for any special things. But one quick thing when you talk about a lawyer, I remember growing up the Fram filter commercials. Okay, the Fram filter commercials, where this greasy mechanic, sort of built like me, holds up a can of Fram oil filter and says, "You pay me now or you pay me later," as they tow in the car. That's how I feel about attorneys. You pay them up front, don't have the will done right, and you don't have to pay them a lot of money later to settle a complicated or confusing estate. When my wife died, it cost me $8.25 to settle her estate. We had a great lawyer who said, "Just take this to court." We took it, we worked everything out ahead of time, and it cost me $8.25. So it's important to have a good attorney do your will. The other thing is that it's called the last will and testament because the first testament is the Old Testament. We all know that one. David and all the good things, Moses. The New Testament, Jesus and the resurrection and all that good stuff. Well, the last will and testament, when your family gathers together in the lawyer's office, they're going to find out what you really cared about. Children, grandchildren, wife, husband, and the church. Could be the Boy Scouts, YMCA, things that you cared about. And it's a witness to your life and for your children and grandchildren to know what you really valued. So that's very important. Also, it's important, I think, to have, I'll tell you a quick story. I was a rector and went to a parish called St. Thomas's Church in Towson. And I got there, and there was a fund for outreach. And people left money to that fund, and income from that fund every year was distributed to outreach programs. Wonderful stuff, food ministries and soup kitchens. But there was no other fund for the church, the Heritage Church Fund. So I went to the nearest parish, who was a very wealthy parish, and heard they had a wonderful Heritage Fund. So I literally went there. They gave me a copy of their bylaws. I brought them home to our parish. Our vestry just changed the names here and there. And we had a wonderful fund for heritage. And that money would be used to maintain the church, improvements. And what would happen is with those two funds, we had a brochure, had those two funds. When a family member died, I would go and say, "Do you want to have flowers?" And quite often the family said no. So let me tell you about two of the funds we have at St. Thomas's. One is the outreach fund. That all money, all the income from that money is distributed to do good works in our community. Or we have the Heritage Fund. That fund is money that's left, is kept in that fund. The income's used to make repairs and improvements to the life of our church. And what I would hear with the family is, "Well, Gladys loved to go to the soup kitchen with your team from your church. She'd want her money to go to the outreach fund." Or, "Dad, well, he used to work go clean up around the church, thought we weren't doing enough to make improvements. He'd want to go to the Heritage Fund." So basically, in the newspaper, 3 or 4 times, sometimes a couple times a month, we'd have in there, in lieu of flowers, please send gifts to the Heritage Fund, St. Thomas's, or the Outreach Fund. It got to the point people saw that as a really wonderful ministry. When you have a wedding anniversary, when you're you know celebrating 50 years, what do you need for your house? Nothing. We had people who would said in lieu of having a gift, please give a gift to St. Thomas's for the Heritage Fund or the Outreach Fund.
Yeah.
So people got to know that and became part of that. And it was very important to have integrity with that because people then could see the good work the church was doing and invite people to join in that.
Thanks, Charles, for that story. It's beautiful. Elizabeth, I think, and Charles, you always have a story, so I appreciate that. Um, Elizabeth, I think another great way to engage folks who are a part of the Legacy Society is to ask them from time to time to speak in church about why they made a gift. They are the most inspiring testimony to others who are thinking about it. And so if you can give them an opportunity, maybe they don't want to do public speaking, but maybe they'd write a little thing for the newsletter or do something like that where they could pass along that inspiration. I think that's a great way to do it. I also think when you have people who have said, I'm all in, I have left the church in my estate plans, this matters to me, that they become almost like a good counsel of advice. They're your folks that you might want to, include. Maybe they already make their voices known in decisions, but like make certain that there's some way to interrelate with them. Who's checking in with the folks who have made gifts. And that might be some of the work of the Legacy Society, the chair of that group, to check in with folks and say, thank you. Charles reminds us that thank you is the most important word we can say in this as well. So as many opportunities, and not everybody wants to say, oh, I've left the church in my will. You can publish that, but some people will. Elizabeth, is that your experience?
Uh, yeah, I was going to say, I get such wonderful things both from my college and from the Kennedy Center with testimonies from people. This is why I've included the Kennedy Center in my will. And they're very compelling stories usually. So I was thinking about doing that, but I didn't know, is the focus of the Legacy Society, I guess, first of all, is to tell people that we thank them for their gift, for their future gift, and that they're appreciated and it's important. We let them know, this is where all the money, we have a number of endowments, but the main one, this is how the money from the endowments was used this year. So they know how the income is being used. And a number of people said, "Oh yeah, I know that's been in the annual report, but I've never really paid attention to it." Um, so that was good, and people appreciated that. So they can that helps people envision, oh, this is how my gift will be used. But I didn't know whether we should try to get them more involved, or is it just mainly to say thank you?
Yeah, try to get them more involved. I like you are moved by those letters from your school or from the Kennedy Center, saying this is why I've done this, this is what matters to me. Other people will be moved by why their fellow congregants have said yes to this work, and said yes to this ministry. And so ask for those stories, and involve those people in telling that story. We don't do enough storytelling. I mean, church is story, right? The whole message of our faith comes down through people telling us stories. The Gospels, for example, the prophets, absolutely, right? So this should be inherent in our work, and we don't always do the storytelling of our modern faith to others, and storytelling is the ticket. So do that, engage those folks, and let it be known. Great job, Elizabeth. I love that you have such a big committee and that your church is doing this. Charles, do you have another comment before we move on to some other questions?
Yes, it's very important to have a good brochure
Yeah,
with legal language for your church.
yeah,
Uh, People normally don't hear a great sermon on this and go change their will. Maybe 3 months later, 6 months later, the brochure is something they can take home with them and bring it to their attorney.
for
The
sure.
only thing I ever did quality printing job in my church, St. Thomas's, was a brochure for plan giving, because that was something people kept and took to the lawyer when they went to have their wills done. That's important. And we did the brochures at our cathedral now, we put out for 2 weeks. 1 week when we do the thing after All Saints Day, talking about the Legacy Society. And then the fourth Sunday of Lent, we have the cake. And then we take them out so they don't become old, worn out things. And we have wonderful people in the cathedral who will put that stuff in all the pews those 2 Sundays.
Yeah. Thank you, Charles. And that leads right into Richard's question about, do churches provide a list of mechanics? What information do you provide? And I think a brochure that talks about the program, talks about the different kinds of gifts. I also publish on the website. Here's the language you need to cut and copy to put codicil in your will. Or here's what you need to say to your financial planner to ask for this kind of gift. Give people the script so that they don't have to search for it and know it. And I think that that's just easy information to do. Have a little brochure or a one-page flyer. And I do this for all kinds of giving. Okay, so story. I went to the symphony in the fall, and on every seat, every chair, when I walked up, was a one-page brochure of all the ways you could make a gift to support the symphony. And it wasn't obnoxious. It was just, and it had QR codes in case I wanted to do it right then. But I could take it home as well, and it was everything. You can make a cash gift, a online gift, a check gift. You can make a donor advised fund. You can leave us in your will. It was all these things on one page of paper. And I thought, well, my goodness, if the symphony can do this, we can do this in church too to make it easy for folks. This is called donor-centric fundraising, or meeting the donor where they are and saying, how do you want to make your gift? How is it possible? So give people the best language. And again, this isn't heavy. This isn't saying you have to do this. It's available. If you want to, here's some language. And so, Richard, I really encourage you, and I'll put some examples in the materials I send of one pagers and language you can use so that people can just have a little script. I also
What
want to,
follow what
yeah,
one
go on.
follow-up? Often people say, "Oh, we should have an attorney come in and do the wills
Yes,
for
you should.
people." Does that seem, I mean, that seems a little dicey to us. Like, this is our attorney and you should use him or her. Is that
Right.
where we want to be?
So you bring up the perfect question. So no, you shouldn't pay that attorney. They shouldn't be getting anything from it. They should come hoping to get some business from people who would want to establish a will, but make it very clear our relationship is we ask somebody to come as a professional to speak to us, and that's where we end. We're not recommending them. We're not saying you have to use them. They're going to give you their card, and if you don't like them, you can go to, a different estate attorney somewhere else to do this. But having an event, so I know a congregation that does an annual event. It's a Saturday. They've kind of got it down to a thing. It's a Saturday morning. Folks show up, they have breakfast. The diocese comes in and talks about what they do for planned giving and support. People in their congregation give testimony about why they do it. They have sort of a a nurse come in and talk about end of life decision making and health directives. They have somebody there from their clergy talking about the theology of the liturgy and the theology of death and dying and legacy. And then they have a lawyer who can say, I can answer your tough questions, either aloud or I can give you my card, and it's done. And again, it's not heavy-handed. You don't have to use this lawyer, but it's a resource for you. Right now, I'm also piloting a program, TENS is piloting a program with the Diocese of Newark, where we're doing a couple of webinars to funnel people into a diocesan level event where they will have a lawyer, a gift planner, a nurse to talk about health directives, or a medical professional to talk about health directives at a diocesan event that comes after this webinar series. So that's work your diocese might be doing or could do. Or, if you could pool together, maybe your deanery could do this as a regional activity. If your church doesn't have enough people to bring a lawyer in and spend a whole day to do this, maybe you could combine with the church, in the next town or whatever to do this kind of event. I think it's really great. You separate yourself out from the sticky conflict if you say you don't have to use this lawyer, they're not getting paid, uh, they're just a resource. So think about it that way. Everyone that has ever come to one of those says, thank you. This was great information. No one, I mean, they heard the pitch, but they didn't have to sign on the line. And at the end of the day, that's what we want, is for people to get information, to pray and discern it in their family, and to then make a decision when they're ready. Thanks for that question, Richard. Please, please do that. Do both of those things. Have a brochure and schedule an event where people can do this work. Ted asks that there might be a tension between annual stewardship and legacy society. Um, you know, I in my diocesan ministry, I worked kind of hand in hand with the planned giving officer for the diocese. I was the development guy, she was the planned giving guy or planned giving gal. When we walked into a room once, one of our donors said, "Hey, look, it's now and later." Um, and it's okay. That's not a tension. We raise annual gifts for our annual operating fund, and that's your number one ask from your church is to support it with your life and labor, with your great ideas, and we want the church and our members to be able to support us. So, absolutely, that's your most important gift. Anyone can make a planned gift, but because it's coming from assets that you're not using right now or spending right now, it's coming after you no longer need those assets or can use those assets. It's not in conflict with your annual gift. In fact, it could be a lovely relationship because one of the reasons that people leave planned gifts to their church is they think about as endowing their pledge or giving their pledge in perpetuity, right? I want to make sure that when I'm no longer here to leave this annual gift to the church, that it's going to be made on my behalf by a bequest or adding to the endowment or something like that. So in fact, it's not intention, it's actually really supportive of your annual giving. I've also seen uh, a congregation do at their stewardship time, do a combined campaign where they say, here's your annual stewardship and here's information about making a planned gift. A little bit more than that checkbox on the pledge card that I talked about earlier, but they actually said, if you're ready to talk about that, we have people here and here's a brochure. They were pretty active and they got a few gifts that year that came out of it and people didn't sacrifice their annual support. Um, so I think uh, I think that that is some insight there. And I think Elizabeth's comment to you, Ted, is spot on for a lot of places, right? Sometimes we see really good endowments add to the operating income, and then we say, well, does anybody need my gift? Why should I stretch this year? The endowment's going to contribute to the campaign. I've seen that because it's our, again, our human inadequacies that we see this and see it as a zero-sum game when in fact it's just more is more. But
Well,
yeah,
oh,
go on.
sorry.
No.
I guess what I was going to say is that maybe this was due to the launch of the Legacy Society, and actually the stewardship chair was reluctant to put that box on there, probably because they didn't know. We're one of those parishes that our annual expenditures are supported by stewardship at this time, and that seems to be a focus of it. However, may I say two other things?
Sure,
You were
sure.
in you're in the Diocese of California.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Bishop William Swing received me into the Episcopal Church 36 years ago.
Oh, he
My
did a
my
good thing.
my favorite bishop. Um, I just, as regards what Richard was saying, there are also substantial resources at the Episcopal Church Foundation with regard to brochures, checklists, end of life questions, and not specific to legacy, but extraordinarily good materials. So thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm now in the Diocese of Colorado.
Well, Ted, thank you. I'm glad Bishop Swing received you. It seems like when he shook the Holy Spirit up in you, he did good work, and we're glad that you're still involved and beautifully doing ministry in Colorado. Your point about ECF, Episcopal Church Foundation, is great. ECF.org. It's a really easy website to remember. Absolutely full of information. This is what they do. They help churches create endowments, they help members make faithful gifts, they provide resources. A lot of it is free, some of it is you have to pay for like a few bucks for like a chunk of brochures or something, but you're just paying for printing costs at that point. They've developed the materials. So get out there and see what's there. It's really a good website. Charles?
I was going to say, when I preach, I share with the congregation my will. And it's very simple. I've got two children, my first marriage, two children, the second marriage, they call me dad. All four of my children are getting 20% of my estate. 5% is going to Hobart College, where I graduated the 191. I made it. And life of consequence. Then 5% goes to Berkeley Community School at Yale that prepared me to be a priest. 5% is going to the American Friends of the Episcopal Diocese of Jerusalem. Was president of that group and helped set up their endowment fund. And also 5% goes to my parish, St. Thomas's Church, where I served 18 years. Well, then I wound up going to the cathedral. I didn't want to redo my will, so I did a gift annuity from the Episcopal Church Foundation. And I receive 4 times a year a nice check in the mail for income from that, and most of it is tax deductible. So those how I did my will, and people hear that and say, "Well, yeah, I like percentages because I have no idea how much money I'll have if I die. If I die right now, I have a pretty good estate. If I spend 5 years in a nursing home, not much. And that way, it takes care of whatever I have left, how it's distributed."
Thanks, Charles. And thanks for your amazing uh, legacy now and legacy later. You are a gift.
Thank you.
Friends, what other questions do you have? This is a lovely conversation, and I'm glad that we're having it. That's why we're here to start this conversation or answer questions. What else can I help you with today? Or where else would you like to go in this chat?
Could you go back to the next step slide? That back up. I missed.
The next step slide.
Yeah, it was after step 1. It's a
Oh,
slide. It's way back at the beginning.
oh yeah, okay. I'll get there. Hold on. Yeah,
Thanks.
I found it. All right, let me share my screen. Boom. Boom. Okay, that one. Um, so okay, so here's what we're talking about here. This is, and you're going to get these slides too, so you can review them over and over again.
Oh,
But
perfect. Thanks.
yeah, no problem. So when you are trying to create that legacy society, um, this is like the infrastructure, like how we promote this work. Give it a place. That's what I'm trying to say. Give it a place in your church, on your website, a designated person, a plaque on a wall, a annual event. This is the public way to promote this ministry. It's yet another one of those seeds. And you can have an event that's for everyone. Imagine this, a coffee hour with a big cake, and then you take people who have left a planned gift to the church out to lunch or have a special event for, so there's here's everyone and you're invited and think about it. And then here are the people who have already said yes, and we're gonna treat them to a little special moment in this in this day or whatever your event is, right? What this is to say is have some publicity. Let people know what you're doing. When you're creating this kind of event, use your committee for all the creative things that I did. And I just put a couple of things in here, but what you want really is for your committee to say, how do we promote this? How are we excited about this? Maybe some are party planners, maybe some are brochure writers, maybe some are uh, personal invitation gatherers, right? They want to just get out there and share the story. Maybe you have storytellers or story gatherers. Who on your committee can do all those kinds of pieces of the work? You want a committee that does it all. Thanks, Margaret.
Thanks.
Do we have any other questions? Hi,
Yeah.
Robert.
Yeah, I've got less a question, more since you mentioned the importance of stories in terms of our heritage. Um, I'll share a brief story here from I worship at St. Andrew's Parish in Downers Grove, Illinois. Um, for years, we had been receiving a check or a payment of about $9,000 a year from the Diocese of Chicago. And no one was quite sure what it was for, what it was coming from. We were frankly for a while afraid to ask. It might get shut off. Finally, we got brave enough and uncovered that the money is coming from a trust that was established by a parishioner in 1907 by the name of Catherine Morse. She gave $2,000 to the bishop at the time of Chicago, basically for St. Andrew's benefit to pay for the rector. Turns out that that money was invested in a trust maintained by the diocese. Today is worth over 300,000 and has over time continued to pay the income from that investment to the benefit of St. Andrew's. So we quickly found we have our first member of the St. Andrew's Legacy Society in Catherine Morse. And it's a wonderful story that has amazed all of us and given us a wonderful role model to celebrate as our initial member of the Legacy Society. So now we're not afraid to ask. We're going to ask everybody. And it's given us, again, as I said, a role model that everybody sees as, hey, I want to be like Catherine.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that story. The more we can collect the stories that we don't know or that we've forgotten about people who make gifts, again, those stained glass windows and the back of the patent, and, take a look at those names. And if there's anyone who can help you fill in the blanks of who this person is, it would be wonderful. I worshiped when I was in the Diocese of Ohio over the summer at Ascension Church, and they're celebrating one of their milestone years. And every Sunday they were telling a story of a member. And it wasn't just it was a biography. Somebody wrote out a beautiful, lovely story about a person based on an interview or based on an interview of their family members if they were someone who passed. That's what they were doing for their anniversary year, was telling the stories of the people who came before them. And it was this beautiful gift for the parish to hear all these stories of people whose names they may never have known, or people whose names they might see on some document or some window or some kneeler somewhere. You never know where these things are stored in our congregations and how they come up. So gather those stories, and thank you for sharing that story about stories. I love it. Elizabeth, you've got your hand up. But you're on mute.
Oh, there we
There you
go. Um, yeah, I just wanted to say your point about asking people to be really specific in the language they might use in their wills. Surely an attorney would say, which St. James are you talking about? But might not. But um, we we have my husband was the treasurer. He's retired now. Um, but we got this money from a lawyer, and it didn't say who the original giver was. It just came from the law, or it might have come from a brokerage account. I've forgotten now, but I think it was a brokerage account. But it had been a planned gift. And we never, we couldn't find out because the lawyer or the brokerage account didn't have the right to tell us who it was from. So we got, and I've forgotten how much money it was, but we got a chunk of money and we still don't know who that was from. No one had recently died in the parish, so it probably wasn't that. But um, yeah, you'd think that would be obvious that you would know who these gifts were coming from, but you
Yeah.
don't. But I love the idea of putting together stories about people because we were fortunate to have a man who was a very well-known architect in the area, and he left, I think it was $100,000. It might have been 200,000 years ago. So that's has grown to be a major portion of our endowment.
Yep.
Um, so his name is known, but this other anonymous donor is someone we'll never be able to thank.
Well, and so, that's a story for All Saints Day, right? I mean, we don't know all of the people who have come before us and who will go after us, but we can celebrate them. And that's beautiful, right? I mean, I wish that brokerage, I get it. They have privacy. It's their client. The tax information's already been done, so you don't need to know anything except here's the check and where to cash it. But it would be really nice if you had a story to tell, but they don't always see it that way. I get that. I saw Susan and Tom with their hands up. Susan, I see your hand, and then Tom will come to you. Susan, you're on mute.
Unmute. There we
There
go.
you go.
I worship in a small parish in Leavenworth, Kansas. It was the first Episcopal church actually in Kansas, so we have quite a bit of legacy and stained glass windows and things like that. But one of the things I take away, and our rector the other day made a comment that he walked around and read all the names on the windows, and he thanked them. And so being part of the foundation, I said, we don't have any more windows that we need to put stained glass in. But what do we have? And people kind of looked at me. I took away from that, all they can say is no, but they can't say yes unless we ask.
There it is. They can't say yes unless we ask. And if you need something besides a window. There are pews, there are kneelers, there are all kinds of things. And you don't have to have an object either. Just sometimes a gift is a beautiful gift. But I love that. You won't get a yes unless you ask. Tom, what'd you have?
Yeah, thanks. I was having a conversation recently with a priest who had officiated at the funeral services for a number of parishioners or former parishioners, and the comment was a little bit of frustration that came from him. He said, oftentimes when people pass away and you see their obituary, they're asking for a memorial gift to something that occurred late in their life, like a hospice organization or a disease they unfortunately contracted late in life. And certainly they're wonderful causes, but his frustration was that people forget their spiritual home for their many cases their lifetime or many years and forget about the church at that point in time. So I think that's another angle to pursue with people as we go through any kind of campaign is just think about that. It's a simple reminder to
Yep.
include the church in your obituary if you so choose.
Oh, what a good idea. Just to give that little, this was a part of your life. So, you leave behind grieving members of a congregation who knew you and miss you and are grateful for your time there. That's a beautiful story. It also reminds me once once folks go into retirement living, nursing homes, oftentimes they lose their relationship with the church, either because they can't get there anymore, or perhaps their children are their financial power of attorney and they take over. And often this was the case with my great aunt, who went into a lovely care facility, who loved her and cared for her greatly, but they were with her for her last years. And her church wasn't. They stayed in touch a little, but she couldn't make it there. They didn't come visit her anymore. And so the nursing facility asked for a gift, asked for a planned gift, and she said yes. And they have a ministry to run too. They have income that they need, and this is, and they will use that to their benefit. They will have a relationship with someone in their last years who's still of decision-making ability and ask that person, and they would want to leave it because it's very important to them. But if you haven't done this work early before they go into the retirement home, you don't have to wait until they're 70 or 80. You can start this conversation young. Anyone can make a planned gift, especially a bequest in their will. And you can change it, right? I mean, it's not done in forever, but uh, to know that once they go into a retirement facility, if you haven't had the conversation with them, it becomes really hard to have, especially because their children are often involved, and their children may or may not be members and may or may not want to see their perceived inheritance go to the church. And so that's just a fact. Have this conversation. Yeah, Robert.
Just a thought along those lines. My wife is sitting here listening as well, and she's a chaplain at St. Andrews, and they often get involved in those end of life ambassador roles with the type of parishioner who is in a nursing home who can't get communion in person, but the chaplains bring them communion or visit. So they've got a good role to play as that ambassador to bring up issues like remembering the parishioner through the Legacy Society that we haven't done anything with, but it gives us an opportunity now to help. We've got more people than just the Legacy Society. The point is to help spread the word.
That's great. And thank you to your wife for her ministry. This is such having someone with you in those moments who's then able to talk about your story and your legacy and be an advocate
Yeah.
is so important. So thank you. And thank you to all of you. Ted, thank you for reminding me 70 to 80 ain't that old. Uh, you're right. We live long lives. Uh, and that's a good thing. Thank you. You've been great today. These questions are really wonderful. I hope that this gives you some wind beneath your wings to start or reinvigorate this ministry in your congregation. I will send you this information. You can always call and ask me more. Charles has a great book about it. Episcopal Church Foundation has amazing resources to dig into. And there's lots of support for you to do this work in your church. And you don't have to pay a consultant to come in and do this for you. This is work you can do and make these connections and get this ministry started in your church. So please, please, do this. It's really important. Some of the stories you've all shared about gifts that your church receives and stories that you have to tell have been really pointing to that reminder that this is an important ministry. So thank you. I really thank you. Our next time together is going to be in March. If you want to sign up for that, it's on our website. And we will be talking about recruiting your team, your stewardship committee. So we're going to do that on March 21st, 9 a.m. Pacific. Sign up for that webinar if you like these webinars. That'll be a practical, how do you identify and recruit great members to serve on a stewardship committee? What does a stewardship committee do and all that kind of stuff. So thank you. Thank you. Please, please sign up for that. Uh, I'm going to thank you, but then I'm going to leave the last words, 6 of them, to Charles. Charles, do you have 6 words for us? You're on mute, though. We can't hear them.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
There you go. I knew you'd remember. I knew you'd come through for us. Those are the most important words we can say in church and in legacy giving. So thank you all, friends. See you soon.
Thank you.